A lot of people ask questions like, if there's so much food in one place, yet people are starving in another, why not just give it away? I mean, sharing is caring. Why aren't we just giving this food away to the places where people need it most? Anthony, is that a valid question?
Yes, it is a valid question, and it's possible to do it. But of course, one, the farmer needs to earn an income.
Yes.
Two, there is a cost of transporting it to a different location. Three, there is also demand issues. You know, not every market demands the same product. Each market has its own, you know, requirements, its own demands. So how do you meet those demands by the product that you have? A good example is fish. Not every market consumes fish as much as, for example, Kisumu or, you know, Nairobi. So certain markets have different, you know, taste preferences. So how do you enable, how do you create, you know, demand in one region and be able to understand that that market requires this product and therefore transfer it to that region? There are other aspects of food safety that need to be considered in the transportation of some of those products, also the sensitivity of those products. Some products require, you know, a cold chain, so they need to be transferred under refrigeration, so you cannot just load it into the back of the truck and transfer it there. So there are other different, you know, elements that would restrict, you know, moving that product from one end to another. So once you consider those different aspects or those different factors or requirements, then you can say, yes, my product is available. Can I transfer it to a certain point, to a Mombasa, for example, and are they able to pay the price point that I want? And so those are some of the things.
So essentially, Anthony, you're talking about a working food system.
Yes.
Essentially a value chain that looks at all the things you've talked about and picks and delivers to where the demand is, but also compensates the farmer. So why isn't our system working? And for me, that also brings in the aspect of governance, meaning that who's making the decisions that need to be made along these value chains?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest reasons are the disaggregation of, you know, the different players in the market. Starting with the farmer has to look for a broker who would then purchase the product. The broker has to go to another person who aggregates that product. That person has to transfer it, so the transporter is probably different, or probably the same person who does that transportation has to take it to the market. At the market, there is someone who now sells it as wholesale. Yes. From there, it goes by, you know, Mkokoteni all the way to, you know, the Kibera, for example. At Kibera, there is now a lady who displays it and has to sell it. So because of that disaggregation, that's where the disconnect is. And sometimes there is no communication between all those different parties. And because of the lack of communication, you find product either, you know, stays too much in one area and doesn't, you know, go down to where it's required.
Would there then be ways of leapfrogging some of those roles sustainably?
Yes. So what has happened is, you know, there have been various players who have tried to leapfrog that. I think we all are aware of Twiga and the way they tried to transform the market by jumping that broker phase. Of course, they had their own other challenges. So there are ways of doing it, and especially using technology. The question, of course, is, you know, how do our people down there actually adopt technology to be able to absorb some of those products and transfer some of those products? How is the aggregator able to manage, especially during peaks? Do they have enough space? Do they have enough cold storage? Do they have enough grading capacity to be able to grade through their products? So there are certain, you know, challenges that any middleman would face in such a situation. How to manage, you know, the issues of demands. Demands peaks, for example, on a Friday, you need more of a certain product. So being able to create a predictive sort of process to be able to understand, you know, what are the predictions that we can generate over time to be able to properly ensure that there's a proper supply of our products.
Yes. I want to go to Michael now. Talk to us about information asymmetry and the way it's affecting farmers, especially because when we look at land use itself and production of food and everything after that, being able to have adequate knowledge, decision-making power requires lots of information, but this is not always easily available. Please talk to us about the challenges that creates.
Yeah, you're very right, Peter, that indeed lack of that information is a big challenge. And you know, farmers probably, most farmers probably they do farming as a lifestyle, as a culture, but they haven't gone into the agribusiness thinking that Gideon can talk to us about. But, you know, in terms of what is probably the productivity of a given product, you know, in a unit area,
yes.
and what economies does that speak to. So I think that kind of training, that kind of capacity building, it's very essential, so that in terms of adequate land use, people need to also accept to the fact that not every crop probably does in every type of soil. So the elements around probably guidance through government in terms of guidance to farmers in terms of the suitability for this land use is very key, so that we know that for sure this crop will do well in this type of a soil, and probably these are very minimal requirements or additional in terms of inputs that will be required to produce this amount of production. So that kind of information is lacking. But also even in terms of probably projecting the production. You know, I have colleagues who are working on yield mapping for different crop types. So in terms of, yield mapping and trying to predict what will be the output out of this particular farm or this particular land, and that will now speak to what Anthony is saying in terms of projections. This is the amount that will come out of the farm, and this will be able to speak to this particular market that we are targeting, and so we'll be able to minimize any losses in between. So that kind of information is really lacking, and what we're also advocating for is elements of this suitability mapping are very key, so that we understand what crop does well in which particular type of a soil, and the minimal inputs that are required, so that we don't heavily go into massive inputs, inorganic inputs into trying to push production because of the unproductivity or the resilient or inability of a particular soil to produce or a particular land tenure system. So I think that is very key. But also in terms of what Anthony has alluded, in terms of the systems. I mean, there are various organizations trying to come up with various innovations, but I think the upscaling of that, those innovations. We have, for example, food banking that is trying to connect producers to people who are in need, and trying to create that linkage and trying to collect. But again, there's no enough adequate finance to support the, full-grown and upscaling of that kind of intervention to all value chains and probably across the country. So that information really needs to reach probably the farmers, and even probably the farmers that produce excess will require a lot of this information, like where is more like potential needs in terms of like where probably we have these food banking stations. Probably people don't know. And we have all those trucks from food banking going around to collect excess food. So that kind of information really needs to go down, and especially through the extension system that we mentioned about.
I want to bring in Gideon, because everything that we've talked about would be a possible business, a possible role in the entire value chain. For example, the knowledge that he's talked about, sharing that knowledge, creating the necessary platforms. When you think about the technology aspects, all these roles could possibly be ways of employing the many youth across our country who are looking for jobs. So what's the role of your organization in getting people to learn about this and actually walking the talk in terms of getting not just the farmers, but various possible players across these value chains and the food systems to play a role that brings them an income?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. When it comes to what we are doing, as Society of Crop Agribusiness Advisors of Kenya, there are the technological ways that can be put across. And I remember very well some times ago, even before I joined SOCA, because I was a practicing farmer and agronomist. So
walking the talk.
I used to receive some farming tips through my mobile phone. Then I had no the advanced mobile phones. But now back to what SOCA.
What were you farming?
French beans. Yeah, French beans.
Yes.
Yeah, in Kirinyaga County.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So now, when it comes to what we are doing as SOCA,
Yes.
We are very active on our social media spaces, and we are collaborating.
Yes.
We are embracing partnership with, for instance, there is an organization that was coming in. They wanted to do a mapping of the different farmers that we work with, the different organizations that we work with, so that they can help us disseminate the information. Although that one has not yet come to fruition. So what we are doing is that we are embracing technology and passing across the different innovations that youths should see agriculture not as the work for old men, retired men. We're trying to make it more innovative,
yes,
more appealing, in that it is a way that you can earn clean money. And this is not just about the talk. We are working with active farmers, and then there is when it comes to capacity building.
Yes.
We are capable of, we tell the farmers that we work with that you need to plant what is ready for the market, and also due to climate change, which has brought about erratic rainfall patterns, then you can access the information. You don't just need to plant any kind of seed. It has to be adapted to your agroecosystem. So all this information, you don't need to be a learned farmer.
Yes.
You don't need to be in a certain location, specific location. You can access this information, whether you're in Western Kenya, whether you're in Central Kenya, you can access this information through us. And also, we are encouraging more of membership, more professionals. We've come to a point whereby everyone is like they are experts into agriculture. There is no a well-defined system into which you can confirm whether the information that you are getting online is credible. But we, as Society of Crop Agribusiness Advisors of Kenya, we are coming up with a way that different interested people can get credible and reliable information.
What has been the impact so far? Are the young farmers interested in playing a role and making this money?
Well, what I can say is that, for instance, the youths are interested when it comes to agroecology,
yes,
and regenerative agricultural practices.
Yes.
There is what we call, there are different technologies that have been discovered, and youths are embracing this. There is one youth I know, of course several, but one is key. From where we were working in Western Kenya, in Kakamega, she's rearing chicken,
yes,
but using the black soldier fly,
yes,
larva. And that one, it appears as though it's dirty, but she's using waste. She's using the leftovers,
yes,
to feed this larvae.
So the circular economy that we were talking about.
Exactly, comes in. So all these, I've seen it working, and we are encouraging. Actually, we want to partner with organizations that want to champion youths, like for youths to come on board. We are there. We have the capacity and enough professionals.
Well, Anthony, how then do we start to work? What's the role of not just government, but then academia and others, to start to make these solutions more broad-based so that we see the uptake further and further afield? I mean, across all parts of the country, we have markets where this waste is happening. People have household waste. We have farmers who, as we talked about, see crops left on their farms. This could then start to be recycled or reused and repurposed in different ways. How do we start to see more people take this up? How do we create the knowledge and the uptake?
Yeah, I think the knowledge is already out there. I think
Yes.
there's a lot of information on how we can, apply different ways and means of, one, converting waste, two, even reducing waste. I mean, that the BSF example is a very good one on how we can adopt. And I think, when you talk about youth, you talk about social media. I think social media is one of the biggest ways of sharing information. And if you go to, for example, TikTok, whatever you decide to follow, of course, will take you one way. But if you choose to go for farming, you'll obviously see a lot of videos of people explaining what they are doing, the challenges they are facing, how they're overcoming them, what they're doing to improve their yields. And a good example is, he's used BSF. There is Azolla farming. If you look at Facebook, if you look at, even on TikTok, the people speak about Azolla farming. So this is basically a crop that grows on water, and you can harvest it and feed your chicken, your goats, your cows, and everything like that. So that knowledge is out there. It's already available. For research and academia, I believe, a lot of research has been done. And I've seen, guys like CPA who have done a lot of work on BSF. Them going out and doing road shows and explaining to people in markets, in the lowest place possible, how to do certain things. I mean, IECP have done a lot of work on BSF, they've done a lot of work on insect farming, they've done a lot of work also on beekeeping, and these are things that I know can be adopted at that level. Another concept I see that seems to be picking up and working is something they call the village-based agriculture advisors. So these are individuals in their communities who are sort of on the forefront of adopting certain technologies. They are sort of set up a model farm by which, other farmers around them can come and learn from them. So being able to identify, who is the best village-based advisor within that region, and utilizing them to, one, share information, because, there's a person, they are the go-to person for almost everybody within that locality. They're already practicing some of the different technologies that are already adopted. So utilizing and, even creating a database of who are the village-based advisors and how can you disseminate information to some of those people. I think that is one of the ways by which we can share information down to the villages so that people can adopt different practices. Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, we have just about 3 minutes left to the end of the show, and I want each of you to take 1 minute to talk about what they think is really critical to get right in this instance, even as we talk about food waste and food loss, and how to tackle this effectively and sustainably. I think we start at Defined.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So, for me, I think we need to crack a nut in terms of accessing finance in the first place to be able to advance in investing in some of these technologies, because some of them are available, but also in terms of upscaling them to effectiveness. But also this finance will go a long way to promoting kind of research to be able to find out like what is the turnover of investment in this kind of technologies, how effective are they, and how that then flows back to inform, for example, policy. So if we are able to get a crack on that, I think we'll be making a good step forward, but also a lot of collaboration between government and private partnerships, so that a lot of these technologies that are out there and even in research are available to the larger community and all the stakeholders, so that we have a synergized way of catalyzing the innovations and adaptations and the interventions together to address this eminent problem of food loss and waste.
Okay, thank you. Gideon?
Yeah, thank you. I need to say that there is need for consumer behavior change, and this will come through capacity building and ensuring that there is dissemination of information that someone or somebody should buy what they in need of. And also at the production level, there is a need to bridge the gap between the existing research findings and what farmers are practicing. So it's not that research has not been done. Research is there. The findings are lying in the shelves. But now there is need to collaborate between governments. Governments can sign MOUs, memorandums of understanding, with the existing institutions there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anthony, briefly.
Yeah, I think to add on to what they've said is information needs to be shared down to grassroots, because there's a lot of technology out there. A good example is Calro has done a lot of research on different aspects. It's only once a year they hold an open show where they display the different products, the different things that they've done. But how can that show go literally to the grassroots for farmers to understand the different seeds that are available, the different things that Calro is doing? Because I think there's a lot of knowledge already, but the question is, how does it go down there? How can it be also translated to the understanding of the farmer? I mean, the farmer right now is typically a 60-year-old. How do we disseminate that information to a 60-year-old man or woman who's running their farm and growing their crops, and this is what they know and this is what they've done all their lives? How do we transform their mindset? How do we change their mindset? I think it's important that government institutions that have already done a lot of research are able to get right down there to the grassroots and be able to share that information.
Okay, so we're talking about mindset change and retraining. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Michael, Gideon, and Anthony, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It has been a very insightful conversation, and of course, one that speaks to the upcoming World Food Day, of course, how to tackle food loss and food waste effectively and sustainably. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. It has been a blast. My name is Peter Wakaba. Of course, the news